A couple weeks ago, I finished writing my second novel. One thing I've noticed about my novel writing process is that generally somewhere around halfway through a novel, even a little bit over halfway through, I generally come up with a big epiphany, a wave of inspiration spikes, because, now I have more of a completed perspective, so to speak, of my novel. I see what the characters are like more and whatnot, and then I realize, oh, all this that came before, that should be like this, and this should be like that, and blah, blah, blah. When I was writing my first novel, these edits that I came up with completely altered the course of how the novel was going to go, and instead of continuing to write the rest of the novel with those edits in mind and writing it almost as if I had written those edits already, I completely paused the novel writing process. I went back, I edited those scenes, then I finished the novel. The problem with this was that I was editing the scenes, but I didn't yet know what the complete and total novel was like, exactly how long it was, exactly how it ended. Even if I had the ending planned out and all, I didn't know exactly what it looked like as a finished product. And I was editing, trying to predict what it would be like and what I would need to edit it to be like to fit with the finished product that I had not yet seen. Ironically, once I actually fully finished the entire novel, I realized that the way that I finished out the novel didn't even really work with the edits that I had made beforehand, and I needed to go back and edit the edits that I had made in order to make it work with the actual ending that I had created, and, then that's all at work down the drain. I just had to do a whole nother batch of edits again. Because let's be honest, even if you edit it beforehand, there will always be edits to do once you finish the novel. You will always step away from the novel, come back, look back, because, it does help to take a little bit of time to give yourself a little, cognitive distance from the novel so that it's not your baby and you can look at it with fresh eyes. But anytime you look back at that novel, you will realize, oh, wow, I wrote that. Damn, that hurts. I gotta edit that. There will always be edits to make, I can assure you. So with my first novel, by, stopping the novel writing process, because I just couldn't hold myself back from going back and instilling all of these edits that I needed to make things make sense with what was going to come later, I essentially plagued myself with 2 rounds of edits. Now, I'll be honest, the second time around, I just kind of wrote down the edits I needed to make, but I haven't made those edits on my first novel yet. I'm not certain that I ever will. But, for it to be a decent novel, it would definitely need that second round of edits. With my second novel, at first, I made the same mistake. I completely changed the main villain. Well, there's multiple villains. You can kind of argue over which one is the main villain, honestly, which is a neat little thing I wiggled in there. But anyways, I made one of the bigger, importanter villains go from being part of a bigger gang that he's trying to advance himself in and win this big citywide gang war to being somebody who just kind of operates on his own, lower the scale of the novel, make it less epic, because everything these days needs to be epic. The world's on fire. The heroes need to save the entire multiverse, like literally, in Marvel movies. You need to save not just the universe, multiple universes. There's been scale inflation, I think, with a lot of stories. A lot of stories could really deal to be scaled down. But anyways, my gripe aside, the first time when I came up with that big edit, I went back and I just changed all the things that came before, and then I kept on writing. The exact same thing as I did the first time with my first novel. But then later, I came up with other edits, and this was like 3/4 already done with the book, that made the book way better in my opinion. They drastically improved things, but crucially this time, instead of going back and editing everything and then continuing, I decided I was just going to finish the novel and then get that completed perspective, and then I would go back and I would make all of these new things make sense. And that's when I would make all of these improvements. So I just opened up a new file, I just wrote down, I vomited out every single one of the edits I was going to make. And as I came up with more edits as I went on, I just added to this log of edits. And as I continued writing the novel as if I had already made those edits. This way, all the new things that I was adding made sense with all the old things that I was, planning to edit. But first of all, I didn't have to break, so to speak, the rhythm of my writing process. I just kept with what I was doing, and, I kept, so to speak, in the zone. I kept in flow, to use a more new agey pop psyche term. And, I finished it, and it went way more efficiently. And once I went back to make those edits, I already knew the entire framework which I was trying to edit. So if there's one lesson I can give you from my experience of writing my second novel, as tempting, really, really tempting as it is to not just let yourself keep writing when you know it doesn't make sense because I need to change this thing that came before, and if I write it as if I had already changed that thing, then there's a plot hole and my draft doesn't make any sense right now. And if anybody looks at it right now, they're going to look at it and be like, wait, I thought Bjorn was 3-armed. Now he's 4.5 armed? What the hell is this? And I'll look like an idiot. And I know, that's why nobody's reading this draft right now. While you're writing it, isolate yourself. Don't let anybody look at this thing because it will make absolutely no sense until you make those edits. Just accept it'll look really weird. It'll be kind of messy, but it'll be a lot less messy than if you go back and change things and then you go forward and then you guys have to change things, so you go back and you change the things and then you go back to where you were, you forgot where you were, wait, did I change the things here? Don't fall into the same trap I did.